Greetings to all in the love and light of the one infinite creator. My name is Jonathan Tong, and I'm facilitator for the Seattle Law of One study group. We can be found in the list of study groups on the LNL research page shown on your screen. We can also be found on Facebook if you search for Seattle Law of One group. We do actually meet on Zoom from Tuesdays, 3:30 to 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and Saturdays, 7:30 to 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. You don't have to live in the Seattle area to join our Facebook group or to join our Zoom meetings. Anyone who is interested and available is welcome to join us. Did also want to mention that we do have a YouTube channel if you would like to see recordings of previous question and answer sessions with Jim and with other members of the L&L channeling team. And today we are blessed again to be joined by Jim McCarty for some informal conversation and questions and answers about the Law of One. How are you doing today, Jim?
Doing well. Enjoying the day.
Good. How's the weather in Kentucky?
It's nice, starting off about 21. We might get up to 30, but then after that, we're going to keep going up until next Wednesday. We should be somewhere around 60.
Oh, so nice. So wonderful to hear. Yes.
Yeah.
We have quite a few people in the Zoom group today, and I think I want to just go ahead and get started with some questions. I did have one question that I wanted to start with. This was something that you've mentioned a couple times in the Camelot Journal, including yesterday's session. And it was something that came up in our previous Q&A session as well. You have talked a little bit about your experiences with the Adventure Survival School and with brain control therapy. And you have discussed a little bit your experiences with dream work and with journaling and with, I believe, what you referred to as neurodramas. It sounded really fascinating to me, and I was wondering if you could elaborate on that a little bit for our folks here and for viewers. How exactly did you do the dream working? How did that work for you, and how might that help others?
Yeah, the course I took at the Adventure Trail Survival School was in Colorado, about 40 miles west of Denver in the Rocky Mountains. And the fellow who had started the school there had a theory that if you were able to work through various, what I would call pre-incarnative choice, this is what he called anti-life or negative programming from your childhood, that would allow the brain to function normally and circuit your consciousness into your frontal lobes so that you would activate them and have different types of experiences. So he offered what was called a brain and nature course, or brain self-therapy. And as you mentioned, the first part of that was working with dreams. So everybody that was at this school for the course, and usually were about 20 students, would go off somewhere out of sight of base camp and build a lean-to and have a sleeping bag and stay there. So you were totally alone out in nature. And that was his idea, that primal nature was the place to do this. In the urban environment, there was too much input, too much static. So what you did was you tried to give your subconscious mind the idea that you were serious about trying to get messages in the form of dreams that will relate to how you were programmed as a child. Because usually by the time we're 7 years old, all the programmings, pre-incarnative or whatever, have been input and are active. And it's those childhood memories that frequently we work with for the rest of our lives, trying to figure out how to balance various difficulties that we might have. So the dreams then were the first stage, and we always were advised to have a pen and pad next to our beds and a flashlight with a sock over the end of it so that you could see to write, but it wouldn't totally wake you up. So I did that. I got a number of dreams that I felt were very helpful for me. He said usually there was just usually 3 or 4. There's not a lot that we come into incarnations with. We don't try to bite off more than we can chew, you might say. So once you got some dreams that you felt were workable, you start writing about them. And I think that had some aspect of what people call automatic writing, so that your subconscious might also elaborate some on the dream that you were writing about. And that would give you a clearer insight into what you were working with. So once you had done the work with the dreams and the journaling, the neurodrama part of it was, if you could remember specifically a time when you were programmed negatively. Maybe your mother said, sex is bad, it's naughty, it's nasty, you shouldn't have anything to do with it. Then you got somebody else in the group to play the part of your mother. And you had them say the same thing to you as you were remembering that you were as a child. But now you know that you have the right to stand up for yourself and say no. And that was the thing. You replayed what negatively programmed you and caused what he called a gap in the synapses, the neural synapses of the brain, so that the energy was flowing through there and being dissipated. It was being wasted. It wasn't going into the frontal lobes. So once you were able to stand up for yourself, to cry, to scream, to holler, whatever was necessary to close that synapse, then that was a step along the way towards getting the consciousness into the frontal lobes. And eventually, when you did that, 3 or 4 times, that handful of programmings, then it was possible to circuit the consciousness into the frontal lobes. And so for me, it was on the morning of July 12th, 1972, in the pre-conscious state, I felt a click at my third eye. And then I felt my brain, it was like circulating like a cyclotron. And there was a great deal of pleasure there. It was like an orgasm in the brain. And from that time on, whenever I did have an orgasm in the genital area, I also had one in the brain, and still do. So that got me interested in buying some land and doing this myself, because the theory of the fellow was each one teach one. When you come through this course and it's successful for you, go out and buy your own land and try to reproduce it. So I ended up in the woods of central Kentucky, and I bought 132 acres of wilderness, and my access road was a running creek bottom, so you can tell I was fairly remote. And I stayed there for 6.5 years and had a couple of brain and nature courses myself there. But then eventually I was off the grid, but I had a battery powered radio, and I heard Don and Carla being interviewed on WKQQ in Lexington, Kentucky, talking about UFOs and so forth. And so eventually I found out how to get a hold of them and join their meditation group. And after a year of joining them, then they asked me to join them and become part of the, well, 3 weeks later, the raw contact began.
What a beautiful story. Yes. And I know you wrote about it in yesterday's Camelot Journal in the context of all the synchronicities that led to that meeting. I have a couple follow-up questions, and I saw that there were a couple other folks who have follow-up questions as well. So if you don't mind, it sounds like this is a subject that may be interest to quite a few people. So first question, am I understanding correctly that you were reenacting those childhood traumatic situations while awake? So you were remembering perhaps the event in your dream or whatever, and then you would have another person actually play out the role of the mother in the example you gave.
You could either remember it, consciously remember the time, which I did, and replay it like that, or a dream would give you an indication of who it was, a family member, a neighbor, a teacher, whatever, and then reenact it. Wherever you got the information, it was important then to journal about it and then have the neurodrama experience.
But actually acting out and reenacting it awake and conscious, as opposed to trying to do it in a dream state. Yeah, that's fascinating. I could totally see how that would work, and yeah, much appreciate the insights. I had one other question then, and that is, for folks, I can totally understand how sleeping outside would put you more closer to those primal natural spirits that probably would facilitate this process better. For folks who, for whatever reason, are not able or inclined to do that, I'm assuming that one could sleep in their ordinary bed and keep pen, paper by bedside and dim light. as our friends in the Confederation have noted more than a few times. Are there particular words that you might suggest someone say before going to bed to kind of set the intent? Like,
Well, what I did was to meditate and then give my subconscious mind my desire. I set my intention, my desire to have a message come through in dreams. And once I was able to do that, then the dreams seemed to come more easily. For example, after Carla passed away almost 8 years ago, I again started working with dreams very intensively. And they were most helpful in getting inspiring information and making contact with Carla as well. So I think that the intention is what's important. And if you're serious about doing it, you let your subconscious mind know that, and it starts to work with you, and you're a team. And I think also there's probably spirit guides that work too. The guides that Ra mentioned.
I would imagine so. Yeah, beautiful teachings. Thank you so much for sharing those. I saw that Raquel had a follow-up question. Raquel, would you like to unmute your mic and ask?
I will. Hi, everyone. Hi, Jim.
Hi, Raquel.
Nice to see you again. Thanks for sharing your energy with us. Okay, so first of all, super synchronicity. You were in my dream, Jim, and I was asking you a question. And it's crazy that I typed my question about pre-incarnation and choices in the chat window before Jonathan asked this question. So that is, and I was thinking about what question I wanted to pose to you, and I had other questions, but this one was the one that kept coming up that I should talk to you about. So while everything you said would work well for me, from my understanding, and I would love to try the techniques that you just did, my question is also about my family and the patterns that are going on and the pre-incarnative choices that certain members have made and how they're affecting the other family members, and how do we cope with those choices. For instance, the male entities in my family seem to incarnate and be dependent on the female entities. They all incarnate with like some form of mental illness, and then the female entities have to care for them and be in service to them, like almost like completely. So my brother, schizophrenia, my mom is caring for him constantly. My son now born with autism, well, he wasn't born with autism, he developed autism, and now I'm caring for him. My aunt, she was caring for her brother. And this is a pattern that seems to be in our family line. And I'm struggling to cope with the choices that, like, is it a choice that we all made together, or is it their choices and their inability to kind of like work with, to change certain choices. For instance, my brother, he's in and out of the hospital. We offer him so much help, but he doesn't actually change or get help, or it never sticks. And then I offered my son so much help. I've tried to help him get better and feel better through diet, healing, like all the healing modalities, and there's still no change. So how do we know when it's like a choice that we can't do anything about it, there's not going to be any change, or there's something that we can still do, and if we're offering too much service to these entities that are not even offering back any, giving us anything back so that we can keep helping them, basically. I know it sounds a little complex, but I know you have knowledge in this, Jim. So, yeah.
Well, first of all, I would like to say that sometimes the choices we make pre-incarnatively are meant to last for most of the incarnation. That's been true for me in at least one instance. And I think I don't know if you're familiar with Dr. Michael Newton in his books, Journey of the Soul and Destiny of the Soul. But in those books, he talks about the concept of spiritual families before incarnation, making decisions to work together during the incarnation to learn certain lessons. And sometimes the lessons employ what he called opposites programming, so that somebody who is dependent upon another person is dependent for a certain period of time. And like I say, it could be the entire incarnation, so that they are able to learn how to be independent. And for the person who is giving the nurturing, they're giving and giving and giving. Yes. This unconditional love is something that we're trying to learn here in the third density, so that we can graduate and be harvested into the fourth density, that unconditional love. So that's the general outline. There are always unique instances and circumstances for people. So that would be the best answer I can give you, that there is a purpose for everything that happens. As Ross said, there are no mistakes. And if you just stick to it and set your intention to do the best you can, that's all you can do.
Thank you. I am familiar with that book because of you, Jim. So I am actually going to take the time to read that book now. And you're actually, what you just said kind of clicked into place for me, because especially with the dynamic of my son, I struggled at the beginning with him and his illness. And then through it, I've been learning patience. I've been learning to serve it. Like, obviously I'm in full service to him because he requires like full adult care. And I do love him unconditionally. And what I started to do was transfer what I've been learning from my love for him to others. I know it sounds weird. You think you could just love everybody unconditionally, but no, you literally have to have someone who teaches you it. And then you can it's like a blueprint that you could put on to other things. And that's what's been happening to me. But it's been difficult. I'm not going to lie. It's been very challenging. And sometimes I wonder if I'm offering too much service, and is there some things that he can do for himself? And like, why am I in such full service to him? So it's challenging, but you're right. He has taught me unconditional love. I love him. I don't care how different he is. I don't care anything. Like, that was something that I definitely learned from this situation.
Yes, well, I think you're on the right track, and being able to apply it to other people is a very beautiful extension of the experience you're having with your son. And I think that may well be part of it, that you would have that to go on and go with as you go through the life experience with him, to know that there was a positive product happening at all times.
Thank you, Jim. I appreciate you.
Well, thank you for the question. That was very, very inspiring to hear what you're doing. Thank you so much.
Indeed. Thank you for the heartfelt sharing. Something I think we can all learn from and grow from. I am looking at the chat window, and I'm going to go ahead and go pretty much in the order of the questions that I see in the chat window. So anyone on the Zoom meeting right now, would encourage you to let us know if you have a question about anything in particular. Put the question or the topic in the chat window, and we'll make sure you have a chance to ask. Otherwise, Ishan is first up. Ishan, would you like to unmute your mic and ask?
Hello there, Jonathan. Hello, Jim.
Hello, Ishan.
So right now I'm at a place where internet is not so much good, so I won't be seeing your faces, nor you can be seeing mine. I'll continue with my question. So, Jim, I would like to ask you a question on, my field is in art and architecture and interior design. So that is my field, my career line, and that is my dad also do that. He's an architect. And I would like to ask, how I incorporate law of one into the architecture and interior design so that I could make spaces and places where people could feel oneness with each other. How can I design such things, and how can I, create actual impact on this planet by my actions of, creating such things in reality, such buildings, such spaces, which can help one realize the oneness in places.
Well, that's a very good question. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to give you a very good answer, because I've never actually entertained this question before. But my intuition says that if you could use your meditative skills to imagine the spaces that you're going to be working with as an architect, and ask your subconscious mind what would be the best thing to do with the space. I think people call it feng shui. How does energy flow best through a space that you're going to be working with? And what is the space going to be used for? Is it going to be a business? Is it going to be a spiritual center? What exactly will it be? Because that would have a lot to do with how you'd want to construct the interior of it. So in your mind and in your imagination in meditation, then see what kind of images come up, what kind of thoughts come up, what your goal might be, to use color, to use different types of furniture, or the placement of plants, anything that could aid in a person's perception of unity of all things, of the law of one, how everything could work together as pieces of a puzzle that you would construct through your visualization as an architect. And I think that type of visualization is very helpful. Don was in engineering, and in his field, you had to use three-dimensional imaging to figure out how to do various types of construction. So I think the same could be said for what you're going to do. But I think it's got mostly to do with your contact with your subconscious mind that can give you a larger picture, give you an overview, depending upon what the use is to be for the space. Do you have a follow-up question?
Your answer is always appreciated. I knew about the Feng Shui also, and yeah, it is really appreciated. You know, the work of creating a building is always a creative work and always requires new inspiration, new creativity. And I would have a follow-up question. It is not related to this context, but it is related to the meetings we have. You have conversations with people, and you have you share your knowledge of law of one with us. And I would really love to have, you know, the channelings, the people who are like Hathan and Latwi and Co on video call, so that they may have, you know, contact with greater number of people. Is that possible?
I don't, on our website, we have all the channeling that's ever been done at LNL Research, but I'm not aware of whether or not it is available vocally, that if you can hear it, because you can read it for sure. And
I'm asking about live channeling.
Oh, live
Can
channeling.
it be live?
Oh,
Yes.
As far as I know, there hasn't ever been anybody ask if we could do that. And that's again something else
I would love to have that.
I don't really know.
Maybe not with this group, but I know there are older transcripts that I have read where there were participants in the channeling sessions by phone or by
phone. Carla was she would channel answers to people's questions, but it wasn't in a group situation. It was just her and the phone, and I would be there, you know, helping with the phone. And the person on the phone would ask a question and she would channel into the phone.
You know, I was coming in a car today. I was traveling, and I was lying down. I was listening to the music, and I had a serious connection with, you know, like the Confederation type people. And I felt like, you know, I should ask this question today. And I felt like they would, you know, like to have conversations with live people. I just had an intuition. I didn't have any actual vocal messages in my mind, but I had an intuition like they would love to have, you know, all live channeling.
I can talk that over with our group. What we've done now, we've taken our practice channeling group that's been working since 2017, and there's 4 other people besides myself, and we brought them to the public meditations that have just started again last November. We have them on the 2nd and 4th Saturday of each month. And so what happens now is there are 5 people that are channeling. They're located all around the room. Then there are 10 other people that come from either somewhere else out of state or in the state that are here with us. So it would be a logistical sort of situation. We'd have to figure out how to move the, I don't know, we might be able to just leave the sound in the middle like it is. I'll have to talk to the group about that, because this is something I'm not sure, we've never done it before, but it might be possible.
Yeah, obviously. I would love to have, you know, more of the people from all around the world could, you know, have a more powerful social memory complex of the service to others orientation.
It might work. It might work. So thank you for the suggestion. We'll see what we can do.
It's a great question.
Your efforts are always.
Thank you for asking. And for sure, our heartfelt thanks to all on the channeling team. Austin, Gary, Trish,
Kathy Beck is another.
Kathy, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Kathy. You're probably watching this, and I apologize at some point. Yeah, heartfelt thanks to those folks who, brave enough to start the public channeling sessions in November. I think that would be a very frightening, stressful thing for me if I was in that situation. So I appreciate those who are doing that. And yeah, the possibility of opening that up to online participants sometime in the future. What a wonderful thing that would be when the time is right. Moving on to the chat window, I do see Don Atkins had a question he wanted to ask. Don, would you like to unmute your mic and ask your question?
Yes. Thank you for allowing, excuse me, for having this session. It's very nice to meet you, Jim. My question revolves around the Hebrew and Sanskrit information. And I was just trying to find out if there are groups that pursue this, and also which methodologies, how to find out maybe the proper phonetics of the Hebrew vowels, etc. Sorry.
That's a good question, Don. I'm not sure if anybody has ever tried to investigate how these two languages came into being and how they could use them specifically in their life experience. But I do know now that we have a group in Jerusalem that is translating the Law of One into Hebrew. And Hebrew is a very unusual language in that it only has about 1 million words in it. So they have to be very careful about how they use the words to translate the Law of One, since their language is what we would call relatively limited. So that's progressing very well now, and they've got a lot of progress going on. I'm very happy about that. So that's really all I have to share about that. Sanskrit, I have no idea about what that could offer as a means of expressing the Law of One, if it would have more of a possibility because of the nature of its origin being something of the logos, you might say. So I wish I could give you a better answer, Don. I'm sorry about that.
Do you have any follow-up questions, Don?
Yes, I do. As far as I have the intuition that by chanting it's the Paleo Hebrew vowels. This is what makes it difficult, because it's not modern Hebrew that we'd be looking for. It would be the Paleo. I believe that it increases the creator within us. In other words, potentially our inner spark. And because of that, I consider it an extremely important thing to do. That's why I've been pursuing it. And if possible, maybe if I could maybe even get in contact with the people that are doing the translations, maybe that would be helpful.
Yeah, what you'd need to do for that would be to email contact@llresearch.org, and Gary Bean would get that email, and he could put you in touch with Eraz Batat, who is the leader of the group in Jerusalem, and could probably give you more information about what you're looking for. I think what you're doing with the using it almost like a mantra is probably a very good thing to do. I think that you've hit upon something that would be spiritually enlightening, that all mantras from whatever type, Buddhist or Hindu or anybody's mantras are constructed to help the person make contact with the divine or the creator or God or spirit, whatever you want to call it. And so I think what you're doing is really right on target.
Thank you.
Thank you, Don. I appreciate your question.
That's a great question, Don. And I know the passages from the rock contact you're referring to, and definitely something that's fascinated me for a long time. And one of the reasons that we do Om chanting as part of our normal meditation, group meditations when our group meets. I saw that Anthony had a question in the chat window. Anthony, would you like to unmute your mic and ask?
Thank you. Yeah, I was just wondering how much work you put into understanding the archetypical mind. And I was curious what kind of returns you got from that, if that's something that you thought was beneficial to your spiritual advancement.
Yes, it's been a few years ago that I finally started studying the archetypical mind. And I feel that what it has done for me is to give me an overview of the picture of how we progress in our evolutionary or spiritual paths, because it deals with the mind, the body, and the spirit. And we all have those complexes. And the archetypical mind seems to describe the nature of our evolution and how each of us can make individual choices as to the meaning of the various facets of the archetypical mind within certain guidelines, so that it's not something that is strict in its interpretation. It's something that's flexible, because each of us is unique. And by knowing that, for example, the conscious mind is the magician, it operates by having a contact with the subconscious mind, the female portion, that is the high priestess. And by the communication back and forth here, we have a way of perceiving the catalyst of the mind and how we go through our daily round of activities to process that catalyst and become eventually 360-degree beings, which is what the creator is. The creator created us all so that it could know itself. And through all of our free will choices we make in all of our incarnations. So as we go through our own process of growing, we become able to process our catalysts on a daily basis and be able to use anything that might be difficult or uncertain or hard to deal with, diseases or comments people make or anything like that is food for growth. It's grist for the mill. And as we process that and balance it and see that that is within us too, and we accept ourselves for having that quality that we might have taken offense at, that adds to the facets, that, like we are a jewel, and we discover these more and more facets to ourselves. So that the Ra's basic dictum to know yourself, accept yourself, and become the creator is the generalization of how all this works. So the archetypical mind gives us a means to utilize our catalyst in mind, in body, and in spirit. So it's a way of making our conscious choices something that are part of our everyday experience. We just don't blindly go through our lives and wonder, what was that? And what can I do with that? And I'm going to forget about that because I don't like that. We use it all. Everything that we experience is a means of helping us move further along our path of growth. And our path is reunification with the one creator. And this is something that could take the entire octave of experience of all seven densities, ending in the eighth where we're all one, or people can have these spiritual awakenings here in the third density. It's something that can happen anywhere. So the archetypical mind, I think, is a way for us all to become more aware of who we really are and how to facilitate our journey back into unity with the one creator.
Any follow-up questions on that, Anthony?
No, that was very insightful. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Anthony. That was a good question.
Always an interesting topic for sure for all. Bill, I saw that you had a question in the chat window. Would you like to unmute your mic and ask?
Yeah, thanks, Jim, for being with us. You have a May 19th, 1980 session with Kuo that talks about the uniqueness that is your essence. And I'm going to read this quote real quick. It says, "And so it created its children, children of love and free will, one unit of absolute love that can never change and will never be unique, and an absolutely equal portion of infinitely various free will. That is your nature." And bouncing off that, in the raw contact, when Don asked Ra to state the law of one, he said, all things are one. There is no polarity, no right or wrong, no disharmony, but only identity. And I wonder what identity is. And is identity this idea of us having this one unit of absolute free will? And am I on the right track there?
In general, I think you're on the right track. In my opinion, and everything I give you here is opinion, the thing that does not change is the love that created all of the creation. That was the one infinite creator. That love is here for everybody to take advantage of and to feel as we go through our lives. And the part that is unique is how we each, as a soul essence, have a certain ability to be able to grow, to perceive the world around us, to have a spiritual path we pursue in a unique way, using that quality of love and light that does not change. And all of that is a manifestation of the Creator that is always everywhere around us. There's nothing but the Creator. But we are unique in the way we travel through our journey back into unity with that Creator. So I think what Quo was saying there is we are unique, but the nature of the creation is sort of set, you might say. And it is always there offering itself to us in the qualities that we call love, the power to create, and the light is the what is created. It manifests as light, as planets, as people, as environments. So we move through this portion of the Creator that is ever present and ever the same. And yet we as unique beings utilize it in a unique way.
And so our uniqueness is identity.
Right. But it's also the one Creator, but we perceive it and produce it in a unique way.
Okay.
Hope that wasn't confusing.
Thank you.
Well, thank you.
It's a great question, Bill. Thank you. No follow-ups, no further questions? Sounds good. Curtis, you're next in the lineup. Would you like to unmute your mic and ask?
Hi, Jim. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you doing, Curtis?
In my understanding, there's a quote by Ra that says we're supposed to see ourselves as a creator, see others as a creator, see the creation and love it. So we just started back on the first session of Law of One, and we were talking about Ra doesn't really push service to self or service to others in that. So my question with polarity, if I was like a runner, I run races, and I wanted to be the winner, that's polarizing service to self, because I want to win. But that doesn't make me a bad person. So somebody who's doing that, who's not even in this law of one or anything like that, when he gets harvested or she gets harvested, they're not going to polarize service to self or service to others. Like service to self, you have to be 95%. They will go to another third density planet. Is it going to be a service to self third density planet or service to others third density planet? Because I see we have a choice, and if we work on it and to get to 51, we'll go to fourth density for service to others. And if we work on it, service to self, we hit 95%, we'll polarize fourth density service to self. But if we don't, what happens then?
Well, the choice usually has to be made consciously, a conscious seeker of truth. And most people polarize in the positive sense. About 10%, according to Ra, polarize negatively. However, I believe there are some people who are positively polarizing without realizing that's what they're doing. Some people just are of the nature, maybe it's pre-incarnative choices, I don't know, that they want to be of service to other people. And that's just the way they are. But if you ask them about spiritual principles like the law of one or any major religion, they would probably say, well, I'm just doing what feels to me to be the best thing to do. So if people do not make a choice or are not able, either by their own nature, to polarize one way or the other, then as apparently is the case with most of the people on our planet, they have to go to another third density planet and go through another 75,000 year cycle and try again. And that is perhaps one of the big problems with our population on Earth today, is that most of the population is in that situation. So it's not, we're not forming a social memory complex just now. Hope there's Ross said the harvest would be between 100 and 700 years in the future. So hopefully it can still be done. But if not, then those who do not make the harvest or the graduation would have to go to another third density planet and try again.
So the third density planet is going to be a neutral third density planet where we just start over with the veil.
All third density planets in general begin as neutral. It's only when, well, for example, when Ra was on Venus, they were able to be graduated in the second 25,000 year cycle. And those who were not graduated were still having to go through third density experience. So the planet itself can and does move into fourth density. That's the situation now on Earth. Ross said our Earth, Mother Earth, is fourth density, but her children are scattered throughout the spectrum of the orange and yellow and green energy centers. So we're trying to get everybody to the green as far as positive polarity goes.
Okay, thanks. One other quick question. When you have dreams about that you're flying, and just these dreams come up all the time, does it mean anything?
Honestly, I don't know. But I remember when I was younger, especially as a child, I had those dreams. All I had to do is lean forward in the dream and I would take off and go someplace. So I think it's a good thing. I've never really had anybody, interpret that flying. You could, I mean, just intuitively flying, going higher, being in control of your own spiritual journey and going where others have not gone before. That would be my thought,
Okay, thank you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate your questions.
Thank you.
Those are great questions, Curtis. Thank you for sharing. And Jim, I apologize. I'm going to ask a follow-up question that you might have answered already, but I was a little distracted trying to looking at the chat window. So I apologize if you answered this already. But are you saying that somebody who just by nature acts in service to others at least 51% of the time, but has no idea what the law of one, has no spiritual, religious backgrounds, isn't even necessarily aware that they're doing that, but they just do it unconsciously, would still be harvestable or not harvestable?
Right.
What?
Don asked Rod, do you have to understand the law of one in order to be harvested? And Rod said, no, the understanding is not of this density. You just have to manifest the qualities that are service to others. And I think my mom and dad are in that area. They were very simple people. They were dirt poor when they were young and during the Depression. And so they decided that when they had a child, they wanted to give him everything they never had. So they helped me, they supported me in everything I ever did. And they both worked in a grocery store. My dad was a manager. My mom kept the books and ran the checkout counter. And they just helped people there as much as they could. They helped me. And even though I moved to the land off the grid, which is the way they were brought up, they had no idea what I was doing, but they totally supported me because they wanted me to be happy. And I joined Don and Carla, and we had the raw contact. They had no idea what that was. Somebody asked my mom after they come to visit, well, what's Jim doing now? She said, well, he's typing for an airline pilot. Because airline pilots need typists.
Right.
So,
and that just ended the conversation right there,
yeah.
I'm sure.
So they were just really good, simple people. They just wanted to be of service. And I think they may have made it.
What a beautiful story. Yeah. I was going to ask if they were disappointed that you joined the hippie revolution and declined to go into the grocery business. But
well, they were probably a little disturbed by that, but they still supported me. Yeah,
what a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that just goes to show what you were saying about your parents, that they were pure in heart for sure and had your best interests at heart. Ukamoto, I see that you have your hand up. If you want to ask a follow-up question, go for it. And then you were actually next in the lineup. If you want to ask your question from the chat window, go for it as well.
All right, Brother Jonathan, love and light and grand rising to you. Always great to converse with you again. And Brother Jim, words fail me to describe how honored it is to speak to you. All right, so I want to ask a follow-up question in regards to what the Brother Curtis had asked, and it is as follows. So what would be the dividing line between, as we well know, Brother Khan, Brother Rasputin, and Brother Himmler had successfully polarized negatively. But in our world today, we see so much anger, so many people who live their lives successfully with a heavy green ray, blue ray, indigo ray, blockage, and red ray to that effect as well. What would be your response to? And these people that have these blockages, they don't understand what they're doing, but they live a, summarily speaking, negative life. Why are they not able to polarize if understanding be not an criterion to polarizing negatively?
Well, I don't know if I really could give a good answer to that because, everybody's unique. People in general who are in that situation that have what you might call the good life in a position of potential power. The thing is, you have to be conscious of the process of evolution. Usually, like I just said, my mom and dad weren't, but usually you need to have a grasp of what you're doing and how you want to do it. And especially in the negative sense, I don't believe a negative entity can be unconsciously negative. It has to be very conscious. And they consciously separate themselves from others in order to control them for their own benefit. So as far as negativity goes, I think that also negativity usually operates behind the scenes so that people aren't usually aware of what's going on with such a person, that maybe they seem to be just successful in doing their thing. But who knows? I mean, you really can't know what a person's thinking and what their motivations are and what their goal is. They may be using black magic rituals to enhance their power behind the scenes. You just really don't know. Don asked Ra once to give examples of people who in our culture at that time who were pursuing the negative path. And Ra said, well, that would be an infringement on their free will. But if you just observe people in places of power, especially high power, then you've got a good idea that that's probably what they're doing. But like I said, the negative path operates in the shadows. And just because they have power, you don't know what they're doing or how or why. So I wish I could give you a better question, but I think anything's possible.
Yes, sir. Any question is good enough for me, Brother Jim. Now, since I'm actually next in line, I'm not going to prejudice everybody else by asking you two questions. I'll ask one because we're summarily out of time. It is as follows. In a very isolated and small statement made by our sister Linda Morris, she disclosed that Brother Don, may he rest in peace in the light of the Ankh, was a fifth density prior to blessing us with his incarnative being. I would like to humbly and, dare I say, selfishly ask if after his passing you received any messages from him astrally, much in the way Miss Carla did when he imparted to her that everything that had taken place, this even extending to his unforthcoming suicide, that all was well. And if so, what would the substance of these contacts be?
So you're asking if we have gotten any messages from Don since he's been gone?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yes. It's not exactly a message. We feel we know who Don reincarnated as. The fellow who served as my best man at my wedding, and his wife was Carla's matron of honor, had a child a little over a year after Don passed away. And they were certain that this was Don. And he grew up to be the same height as Don. But whereas Don, at the age of 26, had decided that this was a crazy world and people were just going up and down with high and low emotions, he decided to be neutral, to be an observer, which meant he was cutting himself off from his heart. So Kenneth, who we believe is a reincarnation of Don, has a very big heart, and he has his own meditative practice, and he's a gentle soul. And at the time, right now, he's working out in Wyoming in the oil industry. And so we were able to spend some time with him back, I guess, somewhere around 2005 or so. He lived here with us for a little while. And he was aware of people thinking he was Don. He thought that was kind of interesting. But, you know, the veil of forgetting keeps all that from us. So
right.
That's what's happened there. Plus, I also have a friend who is able to do handwriting analysis and get information about those who are near and dear to you, which for me would be Don and Carla. And she says that she has contact also with Don, which may not be Kenneth, or it may be Kenneth in his subconscious mind. I don't know. And she says that all is well. So that's what I have to offer you. That's it.
Thank you so much. I love you, Jim.
Well, thank you so much, Yukimoto. I love you too.
Beautiful questions. Thank you for asking. And beautiful story, Jim. Thank you for sharing that. I think that's something we can all reflect on for a while and process. Yukimoto, if you have a second question, I think I'll see if I can pass through the lineup. And if we have time, we can double back to you. Otherwise, hang on to that question for the next time. Sound good?
It sounds wonderful, Jonathan.
Great. Oh, and for those who weren't aware, Jim has graciously agreed to do these Q&A conversations with us the first Saturday of each month. So you can kind of pencil that in your calendar and write your questions down and look forward to the next session. Until then, Christian, I think I saw you also had 2 questions. Would you like to choose one of those questions to start with? And we may or may not have time to do it this time. The second question.
Sure. I think I'll go with the second question. The first one's a bit of a quick one. Maybe we'll come back to that. The second one is, well, I can feel it from this group of people. Also, hi, Jim. You definitely gained reverence from so many, myself included, high levels of reverence where almost, you know, how people look at Ra as a god when we should be seen as brothers in a sense. I feel that probably gets transferred to you as well. My question is, has it been difficult working with that type of attention? That has probably only evolved more and more as time goes on. And if you have any insightful words about that.
Not really. As time has gone on, I mean, the way I relate to people is on a one-to-one basis, like I'm relating to you all. And when I relate to people, I feel that they are just the same as I am. In this life, I've had the good fortune to be able to do what I've done with the raw contact. But I think everybody plays an important role in our social memory complex formation, and that one role is not better than another role. They're all pieces in the puzzle. and we all have something to offer each other. And I think that's what we do here in our question and answer sessions. So I really haven't had too many people approach me with, the reverential discrimination that you just mentioned, because I mean, I don't feel that, I'm so glad to be here and so glad to be able to do whatever I can do to help other people out. And I think that's the important thing for, is to help other people out, to be of service. And we all can do that. So believe it or not, I don't feel any better than anybody else because I know me pretty well. And in some cases, I'm an idiot, but I'm a good idiot. I'm well-intended, but I don't always make the right choices. Only in retrospect can I see that, just like everybody else.
Jim, you're not a good idiot. You're a great idiot. I just want to say that.
Or as Carla would say, we're all bozos on this bus.
Beautiful,
Christian,
and thank you.
thank you so much for asking that question. I'm sure it's something that a lot of people have thought about it. So I appreciate your bringing that up from an open heart. I think I saw your first question, and that probably is a great question to ask at this time. Also, if you want to go ahead and do that. It looks like a fairly quick question.
I keep an eye on the event page here and there. I'm just curious if there's any talk or discussion of upcoming meetings or get-togethers for LL Research. I would like to meet in person, you, Gary, Jim, all of them. Or awesome.
If you subscribe to our gatherings newsletter, and again, you would do that at contact@llresearch.org, ask to be put on the gatherings newsletter list, and they'll let you know when registration for our homecoming will be. Instead of having our homecoming in September on Labor Day weekend, as we usually do, we're going to have an early one this year in May. It'll be the last weekend, Memorial Day weekend. So whenever the newsletter comes out, check it out, and that'll tell you that. Other gatherings, right now, I don't know of any other gatherings that are planned. Usually there is a Law of One gathering also in Asheville, North Carolina, and they call it Coming Home. But this year, it doesn't look like that's going to happen because they can't find a venue. That may change as time goes on. We hope it does. So right now, those are the only gathering. The one gathering is a possibility.
Heard, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for the updates for the question. Did want to let folks know we're approaching the end of our hour, and I see 2 more questions in the chat window. We could double back to Ukamoto's second question if he wishes, and if there are other questions, go ahead and let me know in the chat window so that we can make time and space for that. Rael, I did see your hand up. Are you asking a follow-up question to something we're talking about now?
Yeah, it was actually relating to the, hey, Jim, how you doing, buddy?
Rael,
Good to
doing
see
well.
you,
How about
brother.
you?
Good, good. I was just actually bootstrapping off of the gentleman right before me saying about the Law of One gatherings, and I was gonna have one. I was actually planning one for May 29th because I remember that you said that was the first day that you ever heard about him, that you got in touch with the group. Remember?
Yeah.
It's also my birthday.
Oh, no
So we
kidding.
talk about synchronicity. I got
Yeah.
work with you, brother. But I was wondering if we could get you on there maybe, and we could all do the your prayer, the meditation, the Gaia meditation prayer.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that'd
Sure.
be
Yeah.
beautiful. Yeah, cool.
I'd be glad to. Yeah.
Cool, brother. All right, peace. I hope you're doing all good. I hope you're all healthy and well in your spirits. And I just send you all the love and the peace and everything, brother. I love
Thank you so much. Love and peace back to you too.
Yeah, great.
Beautiful indeed. Thank you. I see Weishower is back with us and had a question a little while back. Would you like to unmute your mic and ask your question?
Yeah, thank you, Jonathan. Sorry, my phone was barely hanging on. I got 2%, so I'm gonna probably I'm gonna ask this question. If I disconnect, then I'll watch it on the replay. Hey, Jim, it's nice to connect with you again, and appreciate you being here as always. And my question was, What's in your own practice or perceptions has been your work with the chakras in context of like developing an experiential knowledge of them? I know that you've talked about it before, and I think the way I'm kind of framing this is that, like, you know, as I'm reading the material, there's a lot of contemplation. It feels like I can get in what feels like knowledge that I'm gaining around the energy centers, the primary energy centers and their functions. And I know that Ra also talks about being able to use things like a pendulum to start kind of developing your perception of them with other people. But I'm curious if you have had any explorations on your own that have expanded your own kind of just like perception of the energy centers and being able to actually like experience them and work with them on an energetic level, or do you mainly work with them by, you know, through catalyst and allowing them to kind of balance and orient themselves through experience? Does that make sense?
Yes, and your last assumption is correct. I've attempted throughout the time since the raw contact came into being and since then to utilize the catalyst that is produced in the daily round of activities. And I think that it's produced not by chance, but by design. And that I think our subconscious minds help us to see what happens in our outer world in a certain way, biases the way we see it, so that we can use it and to grow. And I think over the years that there has been a lot of movement through all of the energy centers. I think most, the red, the orange, and the yellow, when I came into this incarnation, were in pretty good shape. And what I needed to do was to work more on the heart. And I've had some experiences over the years that have helped me with that, especially the years when Carla was here in the house and had back surgery on the lower back, and had needed a lot of help to get things done that she couldn't do for herself. So that gave me a chance to not only open up my room to her, but my heart to her. And after that, I believe that the other work in the blue and the indigo have come on. The indigo was activated, like I said, years ago. And I don't think you have to activate the energy centers or chakras in order, but Ross suggested it was a good idea to try to get the primary ones, the red, the blue, and the red, the yellow, and the blue in balance, so that you were, it's important to be in balance with your energy centers so that you can proceed in a more, I don't know what to exactly describe it, in a more conscious way, in a more effective way in your spiritual journey. So I've worked on those, and I think each of us has a certain way of looking at our life so that our subconscious minds process and bias the catalyst so that we can use it. So whatever you experience in your life is probably something that was meant for you to experience, and give you the opportunity to use the catalyst at whatever level of chakra or energy center that is appropriate for you at that time. So that's the best I can do as far as an answer for me in particular, and in general for anybody else.
That's beautiful. Thank you for that. And just a real quick follow-up. So would you say then, in your opinion, I know that your experience, I know the answer for your experience, but in your opinion, just in kind of in general, would you say that it's much more efficient to be able to work with catalysts and experience in that way versus, because the reason I kind of originally asked this question is I've been kind of feeling like I want to develop the perception of like working with the actual energies and being able to kind of shift those, you know, at will almost, but by like energetic, you know, balancing, whatever you want to call it, like with light or that kind of thing. But that sounds like, from what I'm gathering, that's kind of more of the advanced, you know, maybe next density type of stuff, whereas the catalyst is really the third density way of balancing the energy centers. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I would say that is the way that it is for third density. I think, though, what you're talking about is something that might be unique to you. And I think that that was one of the things that Ra had that used that word unique so many times, that each seeker is unique within certain guidelines. But I think that the use of catalysts can be done either in meditation or in contemplation, in prayer. There might be other rituals that you could use in understanding what's going on. I think meditation is a very good way to whatever you're doing, then to take that into meditation and to apply it in a way that sinks down into the heart of your beingness so that it becomes a part of you. So I think meditation is always, a good way to go, whatever other way you use to perceive the nature of each energy center and how it works for you.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
So thank you. I appreciate
Much
your
love.
question.
Great questions. Thank you. I do see Jasmine and Raquel have their hands up. If you have a follow-up question on what we were just talking about, Jasmine, go for it. If you want to unmute your mic and ask.
Actually, I have a new question, not a
If you have a
follow-up.
new question, I think I might ask you to wait because there's 3 other people still in line, if you don't mind.
I have a
Thank you.
follow-up question.
Go ahead, Raquel.
Yes. So Jim, this is about the chakras. And so how do you know that you have activated? You knew you activated your indigo chakra. I personally am struggling with my red ray and the lower chakras, obviously. And I don't know how. I think I activated the red ray and I'm having trouble. It's out of balance. I'm trying to balance it. And how do you know? Because everybody thinks, okay, I did this, I did that. But how do you really know? I know Ross suggested the muscle testing, but how do you know that you've activated the chakra and now you can begin to balance it? Like, how do you know?
I don't think there is always a definite way that you know it. I think that what you do, and is a good thing to do, is to just go through your daily round of activities and see what comes up in the way of catalyst, and then put that catalyst wherever you think it belongs according to your understanding of the nature of each chakra. And by doing that, then by setting your intention to do that, you're doing the most you can do to get the chakras energized. Okay. And the balancing part, we just have to use, well, for most people, I think we just have to use the balancing exercises that Ross suggested and hope that we're doing, the job well. We can't know because, as Ross said, this is not the density of understanding. All we can do is intend. So we know what we intend. And so if you set your intention to work on each one as the daily round of activities points out it's important to you, then you're doing everything that you can do.
Okay, that makes sense because it's just so puzzling. I know you're like, it's like, am I making any progress? Did I actually do something? It's just a question I had. So thank you so much. That helps.
Well, thank you. I'm glad it helped.
Great follow-up questions. Thank you for asking. I saw David had a question. David, would you like to unmute your mic and ask? We're running a little bit over time today, but I know we have a couple of folks who I think are joining us for the first time, and I did want to make sure they had a chance to ask their questions. So thank you all for being here. David, are you here? Would you like to unmute your mic and ask your question?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Hi, Jim. The last time you and I spoke was about 40 years ago. But anyway, that's another story. What I was going to ask you is, have you ever seen Carla's astrological chart?
No.
Okay, well, when she was operating a chat, I think it was Bring Forth, I'm not sure. I asked her personally for her information, and I did her chart. And that chart is exactly what her life was about. She had Pluto conjunct her first house cusp and a hidden aspect to Neptune, which would be equivalent to her 7th house cusp. And so it showed her going into trance and channeling from the great beyond. I mean, it's just an incredible chart if you ever would like to see it.
Oh, sure. 40 years ago. What's your last name?
Whitlock. I was receiving some kind of a newsletter. I can't even remember the name of it. I was reading the raw material in the blue binders, And
Oh, yeah.
all of a sudden, there was no activity. There was no follow-up. So I called several times L&L and finally got you on the phone. And that's when you told me that Don had passed away. And you were a little emotional about it, which is understandable.
Yeah. I can't hear you now.
I think he's muted, but yes, I guess he actually got you on the line one time when you were working the phones for L&L.
Yeah.
Shortly after Don passed away, apparently.
Yeah.
Well, appreciate oh, are you back, David?
Yeah, I had a Zoom message come up. I'm sorry. I don't guess you remember that, but I asked you when you would resume. You said you didn't know, and you probably never would.
Yeah. Well, I don't remember the call, but it took us a little while to get going again, but we did, and we're glad to be able to do it and to keep serving, L&L Research family.
Indeed, beautiful thing. Thank you for your question, David. I do have another question from Benny, who is actually at work and not really able to speak to us on camera. So he did type his question in the chat window. So if you don't mind, Jim, I'll just read what it says in the chat window.
Okay.
Benny says, in session 102, question 11, Ra says, each entity must, in order to completely unblock yellow ray, love all which are in relationship to it, with hope only of the other self's joy, peace, and comfort. Can you ask Jim if he is able to describe the other energy centers in a similarly simple phrase indicating the state of mind or thoughts associated with an unblocked energy center of that color? I would like to place my thoughts in the appropriate color and see where work is needed. Also, Carla speaks in one of her books about the green energy center having two stages, courtyard and inner sanctum. Can you please give us information about these two stages?
I'll give it a shot. The red is, of course, sexual reproduction and survival. And those are very basic to our ability to be within this world. And that's the very basic energies where the prana comes through there, the love light of the creator. And then on to the orange, which is acceptance of self at the very basic level of your personal qualities or eccentricities that make you who you are. And it's your relationship with one other person, one at a time, so that your blending of eccentricities or the nature of your being communicates to the other the same to you. Moving on to the yellow energy center, these are the groups, so that you come together as individual entities with a orange activated self-acceptance and blend into groups, such as we have here. The Law of One Study Group is a group, LR Research is a group, Workplace is a group, the family is a group. So these are groups that have the ability to expand the awareness of a person to consider other people. The orange considers another person one at a time, groups, many people at a time. And then the green energy center is the heart center. It's the chakra of unconditional love. When that is activated, then the possibility of harvest or graduation is enacted. What Carla was talking about, I believe, is the outer sanctum or the inner sanctum. That was her way of looking at it. And I think what she was talking about was in the world around us, we have an ability to unconditionally love people just because they are there. And when our heart is open, we love everybody because we see them as our other self, as Ra would say. And in the inner sanctum, I think that's where we do spiritual work of sending this unconditional love to others around the world that might be in difficulty, wars in one place or another, diseases, famines, and so forth. We can connect with their heart center and connect with the heart of love of the Logos. Ross said that the love was in every moment. And that is something that we can access, that love with the inner sanctum love, and be able to do what you would call metaphysical work in the world around us. And the blue energy center is what Ross said, the first one that is outgoing as well as inpouring, so that in the blue ray, the throat chakra, we speak with inspiration and information. We speak to and receive from others, this blue ray of communication. And when it is really in what you might call high gear, it can also be inspiration, that we can actually become the creator there, the first level where we can really share on the level of the spirit, you might say, that inspires other people to become seekers, to continue their journey, to just do their best, set their intentions. And the indigo ray is sort of what you could see as the logos in miniature. It's intelligent energy. It's work in consciousness, the ability to create changes in consciousness at will, which is basically the white magical area that each of us can access when we're in the indigo ray energy center. And then if we are able to go further into the violet ray has a couple of qualities to it. It has first, the intelligent energy of the indigo can be accelerated or passed through the violet ray to become intelligent infinity, in contact with the one infinite creator, and have these enlightening experiences or spiritual awakenings, where for some period of what we call time, we're one with the creator and experiencing the creation the way the creator does. The other aspect of the violet ray is that when we drop our bodies, and our bodies are what we would call dead, our spirits move on into the light, then that violet ray portion of our violet ray energy center is, you might say, surveyed or balanced, so that we can see whether or not actually, I guess it's the fourth density is available to us, whether we can walk into the light and become fourth density beings. And that is determined by the violet ray. So in general, that's the description of the energy centers or the chakras and how they work for everybody. In general, you can see an expansion of conscious ability with as you move higher and higher in the energy centers, that the perception and experience of the universe or the world around you expands, so that you take more of it in, and you not only take it in, you become that as well in your spiritual journey.
Thank you for sharing that, Jim. And Benny, I hope that answers your question. And if you're at work, get back to work, bro. There's work to be done wherever you're at. And Jim, am I understanding correctly what I think you said earlier as well, that in working with the upper energy ray centers, it's really important to balance the lower energy ray centers first, as in like red ray, orange ray,
Right.
yellow ray?
Yeah.
Kind of provides a good foundation to build
Right.
on.
Yeah, they are the foundation. That's the foundation upon which all else is built. And Rod did make a couple of statements there about having that be the focus, because if you try to go too fast, as they say, walk faster than your feet can carry you, then you invite some imbalances. And apparently that's what Adolf Hitler did, that he tried to go too far too fast, and he went into a dream world where he was not really in contact with consensus reality, and had to go through a great deal of healing after he passed from this life.
Interesting. Yeah, look what happened to him and the rest of the world. My word. Yeah, thank you. And I do remember there's quite a few channeling sessions from Kuo, I believe I've seen, where they refer to the outer courtyard and the inner courtyard and the lions that are guarding the gate from that. And I think if one goes to the LNL research page and uses the search engine and type in lions courtyard, I'll bet you could find quite a few references to that. We have one more question, and it'll be our last question, and that is from Jasmine. Jasmine, would you like to unmute your mic and ask?
Thank you. And thank you, Jim, for being here. My question is real short. When considering the veil, in any of your channelings, has Ra or any of the other beings discussed past life regression? Is that possible for us here in third density via some sort of past life regression hypnosis?
Very definitely. In fact, Don, when his spiritual journey was started back in, I guess he was in his teens, he had these questions. A friend of his, Captain Tom Mantell, who taught him to fly, was chasing a UFO in his plane, and he crashed and died. And so that got Don asking, well, he was chasing a UFO. Are there beings advanced to us? Who made the universe and all of that? So he went through college. He took all the science courses he could to try to figure out answers, but the science didn't have the answers for him. So in the mid-50s, he started regressing people hypnotically. And he regressed probably about 200 altogether and went into past lives. And they learned a great deal from that. So that told him that reincarnation was real. That's the way things really work. We come back many times in order to learn the lessons that progress us and propel us along our spiritual paths. So, and then at one point, Don did ask Ra if it was a service to others to do hypnotic regressions. And Ra said, well, this technique of aiding the memory is of service if the person asks for it and wants to be regressed for the purpose of discovering something to help them on their journey. So from that point on, we realized that hypnotic regression was very helpful. And I think that people like Dr. Michael Newton didn't do regressions into past lives, but into lives between incarnation. So you could see how you were planning the incarnation that was coming up and how you could plan it to be of the most help and progress along your spiritual path by how you planned it. So all types of hypnotic regression, whether it's between lives or into previous lives, can be helpful to a person to let them know the overall plan for the soul. So that's the best I can do on that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, thank you for your question. I appreciate it.
Any follow-ups, Jasmine? We have time if you have follow-ups.
No, I don't think so. Thank you.
Great question.
Thank you,
So Jim, I have a couple follow-ups, and I saw Curtis has his hand up too. Have you done hypnotic regression? Have you done past life regression?
No, I haven't.
Would it be fair to say that the law of responsibility kicks in at some point if one does get a peek behind the veil and does get information on their past life or lives in between lives, that one is held to a higher level of responsibility having acquired that knowledge?
Well, I would say yes, but I'd also say that that law of responsibility is probably in effect for all of us at all times, that each of us is at a certain level of our journey of spiritual awakening. And whatever we've done to get there has given us light and love and abilities to realize more of where we're going and why. And so we need to use that information in a responsible fashion. And I think most people do. I think the spiritual seekers really want to be responsible for what they're doing. So I don't think it's a problem, but it's something that you keep in mind, that you need to intend to do your best at all times. We're going to fall short, frequently. That's the way it is in third density.
Yeah, and I guess it's a great reminder that it's all about making that choice of service to self or service to others and keeping that polarization in mind with whatever one does, I suppose. Curtis, I saw your hand up. Did you have a follow-up question on this?
Yes, just a quick statement. Daniel, who is the web guy for your LL research, is studying QHTT. So when I met him at the gathering, he told me he was studying it. And I was like, oh. So I just want, in case you want to do it, ask Daniel. He gave you a free session. He asked you a couple free ones.
Well, he was here at our homecoming last year, and I was just amazed at the gentleness and yet the power of his voice. He was doing a guided meditation, and I thought, That is just amazing. That's beautiful. So I could see how he would be very effective as a hypnotic regressor, because, you know, when you go through the initial talking and helping the person to relax and to get into the trance state, it's very helpful to have that type of a voice and an approach. And he's really got it. He's really got it.
A man of
Thank
many
you.
talents, to be sure. Thank you, Curtis. Okamoto, I saw your hand up. Did you have one last follow-up question before we wrap things up for today?
If it be so pleasing to the social memory complex, absolutely. Brother Jim, so to that, in that vein, when with these past life regressions, much as with channeling, you know, we run the risk of there being, you know, misinformation. How do we know, and not just how we know, more specifically, what safeguards can we make to successfully ensure that either the regression that we're doing ourselves or the person that we are entrusting to do the regression for us are in place so that these regressions are in fact accurate?
Well, I think it's hard to know, but we can intuit, and we can take steps to try to make sure the situation is occurring in the proper time and place. It would probably be a good idea to do some protection and purification of the place of the working, whether it's burning sage and walking around and making a conscious statement of your intention of what you want to do, or actually using something like the banishing ritual of the lesser pentagram, something that helps to protect the place. And then before you actually do the regression, state your intentions that you want to find something that is helpful in a spiritual path, not just for you, but for others that might be coming in contact with you. So if you are benefiting from what happens there, that you share it as the fruit of the experience, so that everybody gets to partake some way in that fruit. So I think it's mostly the intentions, and then try to manifest them as some sort of protection for the room, the place of the working.
Wonderful.
That's a great question.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Yukamoto.
Thank you. We have run a fair bit over time, but what a wonderful discussion. What a wonderful sharing. And I want to thank everyone who's been here and taken part in this. Jim, did you have any last thoughts, reflections you wanted to share before we close things for this time?
Well, as always, I do believe what we're doing here is forming our own little social memory complex, our Law of One Seattle study group. And I'm really honored to be part of that social memory complex. And I think that we're all pieces of this puzzle. And every time we get together, we put more pieces in the puzzle and have a greater understanding of the overall view of where we're going and who we are and why we're here. So I love you all. I thank you for your questions. And I hope that I've given you some decent information. You realize it's my opinion only.
Indeed. Yeah, such a joy and such a privilege. And many thanks to all who joined us together on Zoom today. And there are many Law of One study groups out there. And if you go to the LNL research page and click on study groups, you will find lots of like-minded seekers and wanderers on all continents, and a great opportunity to join together and seek together and more surely find. I'm messing up that quote, but you know the quote I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So thanks to all who are joining us today. Thanks to Jim. Thank you for all you've done and continue to do in service to others. And thanks to all our friends at LNL Research for all they've done and continue to do in service to others. Thank you all for joining us on Zoom. Thank you all for who are watching this on YouTube at some other nexus in space-time and time-space. Love you all very much. In the love and light of the One Infinite Creator. Adonai. Namaste.
Namaste.
Till next time.
Till next time.
Love you, Jim. Take care, bro.
Love you too.